Hello and welcome to my channel. Today is part 2 of the mini tutorial over business structures, which are different ways that you can form a business. I will add the link to part 1 that goes over sole proprietorships and partnerships below. In this video, we will continue our discussion of the different ways to organize a business by discussing corporations and limited liability companies or LLCs. Remember, these are the 3 questions to keep in mind when thinking about which business structure may be the right fit for you. Think about the service or product you will be selling, the customer or user of your services, and the ultimate goal of your business. Let's get started by discussing corporations. A corporation is a legal entity that is separate and distinct from its owners. Under the law, corporations have many of the same rights as individuals. A corporation can enter into contracts, loan and borrow money, be sued, hire employees, own assets, and pay taxes separately from its owners who are called shareholders. A group of people form a corporation because they have a common goal, whether it's earning profits or raising funds for charity. A corporation can be private, where corporation shares or ownership is held by a few people and not publicly traded on the stock exchange. A corporation may be public, where the corporation shares or ownership is traded publicly to raise funds for doing business. There are 3 primary types of corporations: the C corporation or C Corp, the S corporation or S Corp, and the nonprofit corporation. When a C corporation is formed, each owner's personal assets are protected from business debts and losses. The C Corp can have an unlimited number of owners and also different classes of stock. Because of the different forms of stock, the C Corp can be useful in obtaining venture capital. Venture capital is funding usually given to startup companies and small businesses, which are considered high-risk organizations, from wealthy individuals, private organizations, or financial institutions. The pro to forming a C Corp is the ability to track startup funding for your new business. The cons of forming a C Corp would be the double taxation for the entity and the individual. When an S corporation or S Corp is formed, it acts as a pass-through entity. Deductions and losses are passed directly to the shareholders without having to pay federal corporate taxes. An S Corp can only have 100 shareholders or less. Then it can be taxed as a partnership, which means that an S Corp does not pay income taxes. Instead, shareholders report income and losses on their individual tax returns and pay ordinary tax rates. So you can avoid double taxation by forming an S Corp. An S Corp only has one class of stock, and shareholders can only be individuals, specific trusts, and estates, or tax-exempt 501c3 organizations. The pro to forming an S Corp is the tax benefits. The cons of forming an S Corp would be the limitations on who is allowed to become a shareholder. The last type of corporation is the nonprofit corporation, which is a tax-exempt nonprofit. This is a corporation organized to benefit the public. The business is allowed to earn a profit, but those profits must be invested back into the nonprofit cause. The pros to forming this business are the business itself, the nonprofit cause, and the tax-exempt status. The cons would be the time and money it takes to apply for nonprofit status with the state and federal government. So what are the pros and cons to forming a corporation in general? It can be easier to attract funding from various sources because corporations tend to have several owners. Also, having multiple owners means having varied expertise in different areas. However, it takes a while to form a corporation. Requirements and regulations for forming a corporation vary widely from state to state. Also, corporations are subject to double taxation, which means the corporation is taxed on the income generated from business, but also taxed on stock dividends, which are the amounts paid out to the shareholders for investing their funds into the corporation. Now let's take a look at LLCs. A limited liability company, or LLC, can take many forms. This includes single-member LLCs, multi-member LLCs, LLCs taxed as a corporation or partnership. The single-member LLC is treated like a sole proprietorship, so the individual owners account for business transactions on their personal income taxes. This LLC form is easy and relatively inexpensive to set up. Those are the pros. The primary cons would be that this is more difficult to attract startup funding for a single member LLC, and that the owner is responsible for all business debts and losses. The multi-member LLC has multiple owners called members, all with limited liability, meaning no personal responsibility for business debts and losses. This form is often used by married couples and close friends going into business together. A multi-member LLC can file with the IRS to be taxed as an S Corp or C Corp. This is usually done for either the tax benefits of the S Corp or the ability to attract funding of the C Corp. Also, multi-member LLC members can be non-U.S. citizens. Members can also be LLCs or corporations. Also, more owners or members means that a business has more collateral or assets for obtaining business loans. Those are the pros. The primary cons would be that members must pay self-employment tax and file lots of paperwork for business taxes. I added an additional key resource to this section for Part 2. It is the NOLO book titled LLC or Corporation. Choose the right form for your business. NOLO books are legal books usually written by attorneys who are also business law experts and members of a state bar association. Here are some NOLO book recommendations for someone starting a single-member LLC or a corporation. NOLO's has specific books on each business structure mentioned in Part 1 and Part 2 if you would like step-by-step guidance and templates for doing business. Thank you for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. See you next time.